arguments. By the way, I want to say that I don't agree with the purge characterization either. I don't think social conservatives or right-wingers are being purged from the party.
Well, it sure looks that way.
Well, there are 2 or 3 examples, but there are still a lot of SOCONs in the party and within the caucus as well, some of whom are just as strong on some of the issues as everybody else, or as people like Derek Sloan.
But they're not. But they weren't bucking for leadership, though.
Well, fair enough. Okay, I don't know that that's the defining characteristic of, the people that have been sort of pushed out. But I guess what I'm saying is, without having gotten right into it, so I've come around about on it, is for me the problem is that the Conservative Party, and I see this not just here federally, but I see it provincially, I see it across Canada, and I see it also in other countries. Political leaders who are ostensibly conservative, nominally conservative, they identify themselves as conservatives, but they're afraid to stand for conservative principles because they have bought into what the mainstream media is saying and what their political opponents are saying, that their views, their conservative views, are extremist. Now, I ask you this, okay? Is it extremist? Is it an extremist position to take to say that there should be some regulation on abortion? In this country, there isn't. And in Canada, it's like the Wild West when it comes to abortion. Is a country like England an extreme, draconian, right-wing country because they have some restrictions on abortion? Or France? Or Italy? Or Switzerland, for that matter?
Or any of these Western countries do.
Are these Neanderthal fascist countries because they happen to have some, and that's an issue. Let's take family, the idea of believing in traditional marriage. Okay, without getting into whether or not consenting adults can enter into whatever relationship they want. There's never been a question of that. But when it comes to the definition of marriage, there are people who believe that marriage is between a man and a woman, and that the traditional, natural family has an important role to play in our society, irrespective of what people have the right to do in their private lives, okay? So why take the state and then use the state, the power of the state, as a battering ram, as a blunt instrument to tear down what is essentially eons, millennia of learned trial and error practices with respect to the institution that is the natural family. So let me finish, okay? Those are just 2 examples. And what I'm saying is, you may not agree with the way I've just presented it. But what you cannot say with any real credibility is that the way I've presented it is somehow or other extremist. This is what I'm defending when it comes to, and what traditional conservatives are defending when it comes to these 2 issues and other issues like them, is what was, until a few years ago, the status quo. So the real extremists here are the people who are saying, oh no, after 10,000 years of the history of the family and its important role in building civilization and society and keeping government, if you will, in check, that we're going to tear it down and redefine it. To me, it's the liberals, it's the progressives, it's the left that are extremist. It's not the conservatives. And even if you disagree with those points of view on issues like this, surely you're not going to say that there is no room for there ought not to be some diversity of thought and opinion and some debate within a conservative party. Forget about in Parliament in general, where you think that people would have the right to speak their minds on some of this stuff. Nobody's talking about lynching people, okay? I mean, I hesitate to even use that term in connection with our views. But we're not the extremists. It's the other side that are the extremists. And this is what, I know, a roundabout way of coming full circle, this is what upsets me about these new, young, conservative, quote-unquote, strategists is that they completely buy into what their opponents are saying, and it never into the way their opponents are setting the table for them. Their political opponents say, "Oh, those guys are extremists. You have to get rid of them." It's a divide and conquer strategy, whether it's planned that way or not. And it's shocking to me how contemporary conservative politicians and so-called strategists, how quickly they buy into this. I just it boggles my mind.
See, here's let me respond to some of this. Don't want to get into any of the issues you brought up as far as marriage and all that. You and I both agree on those, but I think that a lot of times people like you and I, because we're so close to this matters to us so much. We pay this a lot more attention than the average voter does. The guy standing on Spruce and Juice in Smallville, Ontario, they don't have the inside information that you and I have. All they know is what they see and hear in the press. And when the only face you see is a young guy, or he's not, let's call him young, from Canada, standing up and taking on the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, the Finance Minister, all these people, and just tearing them a new one, okay, that's what they think the party is all about. Now, what they don't, from my estimation, what's wrong is that they've gotten into this navel gazing, and they're trying to pick out the lint according to the prescription that you just laid out from their opposition. Like, what's Napoleon's famous saying? When your enemy's making a mistake, don't interrupt. They're doing a great job of letting the Conservatives eat their own, of tear themselves apart, of concentrating on the little things that don't matter to Joe Voter. Because Joe Voter is standing there on the sidelines watching the football game unfold, and he's watching Team Red open a hole 6 feet wide for the running back from the blue team just to blast through and score a touchdown. And the blue team is still in the huddle going, what are we going to do now? Let's put a hole in our lines just like theirs. Let's run the same plays just like theirs. They don't understand that. They're going, what's going on? Why, if you cannot make political hay against this government in this climate today, with everything that's gone on in the last 12 to 24 months, you can't make it at all.
Okay.
And that's why I think Mr. O'Toole could be the nicest guy in the world, but is the absolute wrong guy. He's the Neville Chamberlain of the Tory party. What we need is Winston Churchill.
Well, I don't know. I do think that those. I do think that's a pretty.
I'm probably
harsh,
being over the top, but
harsh. I think it's a harsh judgment. I do think there's no question that I think that they're doing things wrong, and I don't think there's any question that Mr. O'Toole could be doing perhaps a better job of being perhaps a little bit more of a pit bull, if I could use that term, and it might help him. I don't know.
It's not even that he needs to be a pit bull, Joseph.
But here's my question, okay? So what's happened is, by the way, for our international listeners, for our American listeners in particular, in Canada, Team Blue are Conservatives,
yes.
Which is the opposite of what is in the States.
My apologies, I should have explained that.
It's okay. But that is the problem, I think, is to a certain degree, you're talking about my team and their team, and you get a guy like Pierre Poilievre who could throw a good, like Gordie Howe, a couple of good elbows in the corner, right? And everybody cheers for him. That's fine. But in the final analysis, even if you get elected, what are you going to do once you're elected?
Well, see, okay. Now, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's where I was going next.
Okay.
Even if Mr. O'Toole, Aaron O'Toole.
Right.
I'm confusing him with the other O. Who cares? Anyway, even if the leader isn't a pit bull, a fire-breathing dragon. Put any aggressive name on him you want. Here's what he could do. He could walk to a podium and say, listen, the Conservatives have done X, Y, Z. We think it's bad for these reasons. And under an O'Toole administration, here's how we will do things differently.
Right, the Liberals have done ABC.
Yeah, did I say that?
You said Conservatives.
I'm sorry.
See, even you're hypnotized.
Yeah, obviously. Brainwashed, yeah. But my point is, start laying out a roadmap that's different than what the other guys are doing. We would go after Biden on XL Pipeline. We would not just roll over and whimper when he cancels it. We would do, this. We would do that. Here's what our plan is for the country, and give people a vision that's different than the one that's being presented.
But in the meantime, okay.
Well, why can't he do it tomorrow? Why meantime?
No, but listen to what I'm saying, okay? In the meantime, the party has not just no position, but is hostile to those members of the party who are standing up and saying, okay, but we are going to lose. Forget about the election. We are going to lose the battle and the argument on the economy because we're not willing to fight the battle on the family. And let me explain to you why that is, Nick. That is because when it comes to financial responsibility, prudence, putting off self-indulgence, saving money, delayed gratification, all of those things are things that are instilled in people, in children as they grow. They're modeled by parents. And so the reason why we're losing battles and arguments on economic issues and on financial issues is precisely because we've lost. We're not even willing to get into the fight anymore on the family. And
wherever you want to start.
So it's all very fine to say, those damn liberals are going to screw us again, or they are screwing us with their high taxes and overspending, etc. Okay, but unless we're willing to go back and talk about the issues at their core, in addition to economic issues, we're going to lose those battles over and over and over again.
So, you know what? To me, it doesn't matter. Pick a spot and start.
Yeah.
If you want to go back to making the argument about, and going back isn't always a bad idea, by the way. This idea that, we couldn't go, that's going backwards. Yeah, well, if you're at the edge of a cliff, going backwards is a really good idea.
Well, as I say, progress isn't always a good thing either.
That's right. So
just think about
pick a spot, throw your gauntlet down, make your claim your ground, and start going forward. But they're not doing it.
Well, they don't want to because
then they're going to continuously lose.
We're singing from the same song sheet here.
I know we are.
Okay,
but
because they're not willing to make the arguments.
You know what? What the reason why we're singing? I am just frustrated with the things that I believe in. The things that I hold most dear being called extreme and being told that my voice has no place in the public forum. I'm speaking in general terms. There's a lot of people who feel that way. And this Conservative Party, under this leadership, could make huge strides if they would acknowledge that people who hold traditional values, people like you and I, are not only welcome in the party, but have a voice. It might not be the overriding voice. It might not be the one that sets the final destination, but at least to be listened to. It's like, you remember the series STNG, Star Trek Next Generation. Captain Picard, whenever there was a decision to be made, would gather his leadership team together, and he would listen to every single one of them. And he would weigh their advice and make a decision. They actually teach his style of leadership now in leadership schools, whatever you call them. What if he would do that instead of dictating from on high or kicking people out who make it look like they're a threat to his leadership? He'd get a lot further down the track.
Well, I suspect that he's doing that, Nick. And the problem is